Welcome back to another episode of Hollow Victories, where the future looks bleak. Although maybe not so much in this episode. These were actually pretty fun ones. I'm your host, Matt Presents, joined as always by my sexy co-host. I'm sure I've done sexy at least once.
We had, I'm sure, early on. Hello, my name is Pygar. I fucking wish. No, my name is Makal.
Oh, you wish you were as cool as Pygar.
No one can be as cool as Pygar.
That's why they put him on that Led Zeppelin album.
Yes.
Anyways, today it's the matchup of, like, surrealist sci-fi about sexual repression. It's Barbarella versus Zardoz.
Yeah. This is like another one where it was like it was like right around the holidays, of course, because we're doing this in December. So we just watch both of them now. So they're both like really fresh in our minds. It's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah, we have never like double featured and then recorded. I don't think.
I think we've double featured, but there was no recording afterwards.
Yeah, that might have happened once. This is the first time we're like, okay, we watched these back to back, and then we're coming to record.
Yeah, and I was dreading it because I was just like, oh, that's so much. That's just so much to do, but. Yeah, like you already said, this is probably going to be the most positive episode of Hollow Victories. I could be wrong about that, but for me it is.
This was a fun one.
Yeah.
I want to do some more fun ones this year. Like we did like we went after corporate Disney like 4 times last year. It's like, okay, we can like take a break, do some ones for us, you know?
Yeah, like...
Especially January, I like to do, like, a really weird one that only I'm gonna be into, but, like, whatever.
I remember, like, after we did Grinch and Cat in the Hat, it was immediately, like, fucking Southland Tales. But I will say, it was kind of funny, because even when we were watching this, I was like, all right, Matt, I forgive... Like, because of how fun this pair-up was, I was like, all right, Matt, I forgive you for making me do Haunted Mansion 2 times in a row. That, to me, was the most significant thing of 2024, was just back-to-back Haunted Mansion. That was horrible. I know, like, Jungle Cruise was paired with the... Oh, and Country Bears, that was the other one, right?
Yeah.
But they were fun episodes. They were just not fun viewings. Country Bears was definitely the most entertaining of the 4, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Haunted Mansion 2023 might have been the worst movie we did last year. I might change my mind if I actually looked at the... No, I take it back.
An American Carol.
I take it back. Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Was that one that year?
Was that was last year, wasn't it?
It might have been, because it was paired with Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that was last February.
Okay.
So I'm gonna... My vote for worst of 2024, Space Jam: A New Legacy. But Haunted Mansion 2023 is a close one.
I would probably put An American Carol, like, pretty close. The thing with American Carol
Carol was also terrible.
There was funny jokes in that movie. It's just where it was bad, it was infuriating. But I have to at least agree that Space Jam 2 is worse. Space Jam 2 fucking sucked.
It does. Let's move on with the future of Hollow Victories by discussing Barbarella.
So Barbarella, released in 1968, directed by Roger Vadim. Do you know how to pronounce his last name? Vadim?
Vadim.
Vadim, that makes more...
I don't know.
It's a French director, so probably Vadim. It tells the story of a woman named Barbarella who has been mainly living a peaceful life, but she learns that there's someone on a different planet who is planning to create a weapon and possibly destroy all of the peace that has existed. This is a more barbaric planet, so she must go there. She does not see much use for sex. I know it sounds like I'm jumping the gun here, like I'm switching to something drastically different now, but that's how the movie works. She only sees sex as like a necessary thing. It's not something to do for pleasure, but she starts to learn the pleasures when she has sex with this guy who's just this guy who lives on the planet she landed on, just says, "Oh, I helped you out, so will you fuck me?" And she's like, "I mean, sure. I don't really get what the point of that is, but okay." And then from there on, it's just a series of very weird sex scenes. It's a competition to see who can have the weirdest sex scene. I'm gonna give it to the piano scene, the organ scene, but there's a lot of other weird ones too. The hand scene's a close second. There was also one in a bird's nest, although they kind of skip over that. It's just insinuated that sex did happen in that bird's nest. She's looking for a guy named Durand, but he turns out to be they're trying to bring him back to Earth, but he wants to go back to Earth as a dictator. Really, the sex scenes are the main story. It's a hard movie to explain, and so is Zardoz, but I feel like this movie is just finding excuses to change her outfit as many times as possible, but also do weird sex scenes. And again, like, some of them aren't even like, I say, like, because I say there's so many sex scenes in this. There's not like a single legitimate sex scene in this. Like, the first two aren't shown, and the other two are like two hands coming together and steam comes out of the hands, and someone playing a piano and she's moaning. So it's not, we're, like, as weird, as sexual as the movie is, it's not a porno. By no means is it a porno. It's just a very weird movie about her on a mission, this woman on a mission, but she has a lot of fun leading up to accomplishing her goal, which isn't even accomplished because the person she's supposed to bring back just turns into a villain and they murder him. And also Pygar's in it.
Well, also I think they kind of want to like secure the death ray that Durand invented.
Yeah, they want to. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, the mission is like, hey, let's not let the world go to shit. The planet they go to is completely fucked, but we end the movie with like three characters that are all right, and they're the three most attractive people in the movie, so it's all good, happy ending. Matt, what did you think of Barbarella? I think you've watched both of these movies prior to this episode.
I have. It's been a little while for both. Barbarella I've seen a little more recently. I remember it a little better. It's a fun time. It's just kind of like a fun, silly little sci-fi movie.
For sure.
It doesn't try too hard to be anything. It kind of has a reputation as like a great drug trip movie, and like, yeah, absolutely. This is for like sure. Get baked and just watch this shit, because it's got a lot of the 60s psychedelic going on in the background. And it's just kind of like a weird, goofy sci-fi thing. They're like flying around on a chariot pulled by a stingray.
Yeah.
And you're just like, hell yeah.
And there's like a lot of details too. Like, it's just like, there's just a scene where like they're first entering, what's the town they go to called again? Sogo?
Oh, Sogo.
Yeah, like they're just playing board games, but it's like a board game with like 5 giant pieces and they're just moving them around and you're watching them play and like, what the fuck are they doing? How the fuck does this game work? Like, there's so many little details like that throughout the film. And it makes for a very entertaining watch. There's like this scene where they go into a fucking suicide booth from Futurama, but it's like really big and massive and you get to pick how you want to die. But then
I do think it was more of an execution booth than a suicide booth, but they did get to pick their method of execution.
That's true. But it's just a really bizarre movie, but like, at first I was watching this and I was like, oh, the awkwardness was really funny, and I was like finding it funny because it just like it felt like a lack of self-awareness, but like as the movie went on, I was like, no, this movie was 100% self-aware. It had to have been. It got so fucking ridiculous as it went on. Like, this had to have been a movie. They knew exactly what they were making with this. And is it fun? Yes. It is very fun. It is very ridiculous. And it was definitely a fun one to watch with friends and just make comments on as we're watching it.
Yeah.
But on top of that, like, you have to appreciate, like, some of the sets are kind of cool looking. The climax of the film had some nice visuals. I mean, visually, it's not like an incompetent movie. My biggest gripe with this film, and it is a big gripe, but I actually, like, some people might consider this a nitpick. I think it's a huge fucking gripe for me. Sound editing is like, what the fuck are you doing? Because it's like, most of it is competent. Most of it is perfectly competent. The music's catchy. The score is good. You can hear everyone clearly. The ADR is a little weird, but that's kind of funny too. It's not in every scene too. Like, a lot of scenes, it doesn't seem like ADR was used, but when it's used, it's fucking noticeable. But the sound effects in this movie are fucking like, some of the scenes it's fine. Some of the scenes it's fine, but they just like throw this shit onto the timeline. It's like, imagine you have like this Adobe Premiere timeline and there's just one layer for bullshit sound. That's what they do, and it's like really irritating, and I wish that wasn't in the movie because it doesn't serve a purpose and it's not even funny. It's like, no, I genuinely don't like listening to this.
Some of the sound effects are really hard to listen to. It's like, oh, ew, why is it making that sound?
Yeah. It's like playing with pitches that are really hard on the ear, and it's like something you would hear in a movie for like a few seconds, you know, because they're trying to, like, a movie is intentionally trying to communicate that this is an unpleasant sound. That's the sound that you would see in a movie where like a bunch of characters cover their ears going like, oh, what's that noise? That's horrible. Where they're making it like it's unpleasant to the person watching the movie, but it's clearly more unpleasant to the characters in the movie. Where in this movie, they just play that shit throughout. It just, and a lot of the time it's not, I'd say like 99% of the time it's not acknowledged. It's just something that they did. There's no consistent reason that those sounds are happening. They just happen.
I mean, mostly it's guns. The guns make a really bad sound.
But there was that long, really high-pitched sound that just kept playing and playing and playing, and it was like, yeah, what is that?
Sometimes it will just find an annoying sound and be like, here's an annoying sound for no reason. It's like being at an airport.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also, again, the lack of consistency, because I was like, in my head, I was like, maybe it's like, oh, maybe it's when like this happens, or maybe it's when they're at this place. No, it just happens. They just play it randomly. I'm not joking. If you watch this movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. They just play this really irritating, high-pitched sound randomly. It's like they put it in one scene and then just copy and pasted it on the timeline with no care for where it was going. Obviously, it wasn't like that because this is an older movie from the fucking 60s, but so it had to be more deliberate than that, you know? It was terrible. It was fucking horrible. But aside from that, fun time. I had a good time with this movie.
God, I forgot we watched Planes this year.
Oh, okay. Planes was worse than Space Jam 2, but Space Jam 2 still pisses me off more.
Yeah, no, Space Jam 2 pisses me off more, so I think I'm keeping that as my worst. Sorry. Barbarella. The movie I think I would, like the more mainstream movie I think I would compare this to is like Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a precursor to the 1980 Flash Gordon movie.
Can I be honest, though?
Yeah.
I thought that this movie was more... I like Flash Gordon. I watched it with my dad. My dad was like a big... Like, me and my dad watched Ted together, and he was reminded of Flash Gordon because of that movie, and he agrees, like, oh, it's such a good, bad movie. That's like one of the few times I bonded over a bad movie with my dad, you know, because normally that's not the kind of thing we watch together. But we like watch Flash Gordon. I like Flash Gordon. It's a funny movie. I like this more than Flash Gordon. I got way more laughs out of this than Flash Gordon.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I might like Flash Gordon a little better. I think Flash Gordon stays focused a little better, where this is like constantly trying to get Barbarella into sex scenes.
I think that's what's entertaining about it, is how fucking you never know what's coming. It's so off the rail the whole time. But I will say there's two things that Flash Gordon has above this movie by a lot. One is they don't have the fucking sounds. And two,
yeah,
the Queen soundtrack. Like, come on.
Yeah, I there was like I do like the soundtrack of Barbarella pretty well, but yeah, like it's Queen, it's not topping Flash Gordon.
Yeah, no, the soundtrack is not better. I think you know, both movies are kind of putting you in the situation where it's like, okay, you're aware you're not getting a genuinely good movie, so which one is catching me off guard more often? I feel like Barbarella kept doing it. Like, Flash Gordon, like 20 minutes in, I was like, I kind of, you know, it's fun. I enjoy the entire experience, but it's not really catching me off guard at that point. I'm aware of what I'm watching. Barbarella, it was like just when I didn't think it could get weirder, it found a way to get weirder. It was like nonstop, and I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed a bit more than Flash Gordon for that. But I do agree, the Flash Gordon comparison is not a bad one.
Yeah, because it's that same sort of like... It's not like great sci-fi or anything, but it's sort of like winkingly self-aware. It's like, hey, we're all having fun here. Let's just...
Yeah,
it's sure. Silly, it's goofy, but it's fun. We're having a good time with this one.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say, too, like, I mean, I think that there are some cool sets in this movie. I think it uses green screen less often than Flash Gordon did. And old green screen does not look good.
No.
Which can be part of the
That was,
charm.
like-
That can be part of the fun, that it's like kind of fun to look back at because of that. Like back then it was kind of fun just because it was kind of a newer thing, and now it's fun because it's like, oh, that aged really badly.
Yeah, I mean, fairness to them, this was like before anyone was really doing that,
Yeah, this was a 60s.
And it's like a lot of the stuff with like pie gore is not great, but like the stuff like, at the very beginning, she's like in zero gravity, and it's really obvious that she's just like laying down on the ground and is being green screened into this spaceship.
Yeah,
but like they still did a pretty good job green screening her.
They did
for the time.
Yeah, like I could tell, but at the same time, like. And it's weird to compliment this because it seems like something that you shouldn't compliment. I couldn't see any grain from the green screen, and I can't say that's the case with Flash Gordon. I can't say that's the case with another movie with a labyrinth in it called Labyrinth, with the Chili Down with the Fire Gang song, which I fucking love that scene for that reason. Like it's a wonderful movie, and then it's just this one scene that doesn't match the quality of the rest of the movie, and it's also arguably the worst song in the movie, and it kind of made me love that scene. But the labyrinth in this movie kind of looked cool too. They really only like get one really good angle of it, of like the full labyrinth, but I thought it looked cool, like kind of leading up to this town. I thought that was a neat visual. There's a lot of neat visuals in this, honestly. If you just took certain screenshots and completely ignored what the movie was about, you could send that to a few people and they'd think it's like, oh, this looks pretty neat.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm sure in like 1968 when this came out, that like they didn't know how that was done. They didn't know how they got Jane Fonda floating.
Oh yeah.
They didn't know how they got the Birdman to fly.
Yeah. And the music was really catchy for that opening scene too. Like I was kind of already on board with the movie because they played a catchy song. And I know that's like manipulation 101 right there, but it works. If you can open a movie with a catchy song, you're gonna bring people in immediately. Now you have to maintain
that theme song.
Oh yeah, you have to maintain that attention, and Barbarella does a great job doing that. Not always do movies do a good job maintaining that, but yeah, what a good opening scene. Just because, yeah, green screen for the time that probably looked pretty good, and just catchy music.
I have that one on a playlist or two. It's a good song.
You and Mitzi are currently watching like Breaking Bad, and they occasionally play a song that sounds like that, that era of music. There's one for the prostitute. Everyone knows it's Wendy, like that. It's Wendy. They're saying Wendy, but because Wendy sounds like Wendy, and the prostitute's name is Wendy. But they also do "It is such a good time to do." I forget how the song goes, but you know what I mean. They Breaking Bad like playing songs like that from that era.
Yeah. Do we want to delve into cast a little, talk about these characters?
For sure. I think Jane Fonda is probably the most notable person in this, and she's also the main character.
Yeah. And I also think it's kind of a goofy performance from her. She's kind of playing it up a little.
Yeah. Well, I don't know too much about her more modern performances, but my brother and sister-in-law really enjoy Grace and Frankie. I heard she's really good in that. But for Barbarella, it's like, yeah, we're looking at something like that takes place 50 years before that show came out, and yeah, it's a very silly performance, but I think it matches the energy of the movie pretty well.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the performance this movie needs.
Yeah.
John Philip Law as our beloved Pygar, who has actually, believe it or not, appeared on the show one time before.
Oh, he was in
Tarzan the Ape.
I was gonna say let me look it up because I have him up here. Yeah, but there we go. Tarzan the Ape Man. Yeah,
Tarzan the Ape Man.
I love one of his credits is a fucking Mystery Science Theater episode, which is probably just he was in the movie they were reacting to.
Oh yeah, no, he was in Space Mutiny, which was a big MST3K episode, and he was also in Danger Diabolique, which is possibly the best movie they ever watched on MST3K. Like, that's one of the few movies they watched where I'm like, nah, this is kind of good, actually.
You actually said that about the movie that they covered for their movie in the TV show movies video I did. What was that movie
Yeah.
called again? What was the movie they watched?
This Island Earth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of thought it was okay. I wasn't as into that one, but at the same time, I can't say it's a bad movie. I just thought it was kind of a weird one for them to pick for their film. But yeah, no, I think Pygar is like one of my favorite parts of this movie, just because it's so funny watching this guy. Like because they made him like this blind character who's also like hooking up with all of the attractive female characters in the film, and he's not making eye contact with them once. There's just so many scenes of him that I'm like laughing pretty hard at. And then they just like, he has the wings for like 10 minutes into us knowing him, but then he just starts suddenly flying. I just laughed so hard when they first showed that. It's like, Pygar!
No, he lost the will to fly, but then he has sex with Barbarella, and he's like, oh, now I can fly again.
But it's like the movie is like trying to say, but look, he's not shallow though. He can't see her, so he's blind. So it was like a real connection. And angels don't make love; they feel love, and they also don't remember things for some reason.
They are love.
Oh, they are love. Yeah,
angels are love.
and they also don't remember things for some reason, because at the end he said that.
I was also like, when they introduced him, it sounded like he was just like an alien species with wings, but then he's like, no, I'm an angel. It's like, oh, are you? Okay.
But yeah, John Philip Law, congratulations. You gave the most inspiring performance I've ever seen on. Never have I seen such an inspiring performance since Nicholas from the Care Bears movie.
Hey, don't forget about the robot from Star Crash.
That's true. That's true.
This does feel a lot like Star Crash.
It does feel like Star Crash, and I like Star Crash a lot, but I will say Star Crash still had those moments where I was like, kind of like, oh, get back to the good stuff, get back to the good stuff. Where this movie was like, the entire thing was the good stuff. The entire movie is one scene after the other is fucking ridiculous.
I definitely prefer this to Star Crash. I also would say it feels kind of like a heavy metal segment. like
kind of, like, yeah.
It has sort of the tone of a heavy metal segment, just because of like all the weird like sci-fi lore, but also like we're gonna get the main character, the main woman, to have sex with like everyone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, okay, so we got back to the cast, and we got Anita Pallenberg as the Great Tyrant, which I will say, as they like hyped up the Great Tyrant, I was expecting a man. So the movie subverted my expectations. And I can't say that about a lot of Hollow Victory movies. A lot of the time I'm like, I know exactly where this piece of shit is going. She was kind of humorous. I thought it was funny that she like got turned down by every single person she tried to hook up with, despite being like an extremely attractive person.
Well, she tries to hook up with Barbarella and her angel boyfriend, and it's like
her bird person.
Clearly they're like together.
I do love
but
that.
Then he swoops in at the end and saves her too. So
yeah,
they can have a third now.
They can be a happy like 3-person couple, and Barbarella can leave her homophobia in the past. But she was disgusted by that. You said it when we were watching it. This is 100% something I got to give Matt credit for. But you compared him to Bird Person, and yeah.
He lives in a nest.
He lives in a nest. Okay, he has wings. He talks almost identical to Bird Person.
He does talk a lot like Bird Person.
Dan Harmon voices Bird Person. Dan Harmon is clearly a fan of movies like this, hence the Zardoz reference in Community and Rick and Morty. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some inspiration from Pygar. I'm not saying it definitely is that. I would not be surprised if I learned Bird Person was influenced by Pygar. But the Great Tyrant was fun. I enjoyed her scenes too. It's like, oh, at first she's just like this person in the town, but no, she just likes going amongst the people and wearing an eye patch for some reason. Milo O'Shea as Duran Duran was really funny to me. I thought he was.
I'm gonna call that O'Shea. Milo O'Shea.
I
think would be more accurate.
We can do a fucking compilation of me like clearly reading the last name wrong on this show.
I mean, it's that classic tweet I put out that was like, Michael struggles to say name, me confidently says it wrong. Sometimes I've got it right, and you've just got it wrong, but I also, like, you will try to pronounce stuff, and I'm like, here's my best attempt. No idea if that was right.
That is so true though. Like you always go with confidence. So if you say it right, you sound smart, and if I say it right, it's followed by me saying like, "Oh, I don't know if I said that right." I thought Duran Duran was a really funny fucking villain, just because the organ scene is really what sold him. But then he just gets crazier and crazier in the climax of his fucking dildo weapon. Which I don't even think that was the point. I don't even know if that was the point. I don't think they were making that innuendo, but it's a bunch of sticks sticking out, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, he invented an organ that, like, kills you by overstimulating you. And Barbarella is so insatiable she breaks it.
And that was really funny, too. That he was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Jesus! I enjoyed him. I enjoyed the fact that he was fucking 25, too. That cracked me up.
The, like, old professor guy who, like, helps rebuild Barbarella's ship.
Professor Ping.
Yeah, that's famous mime Marcel Marceau.
Oh, he was famous for being a mime?
Yeah, he's, like, the most famous mime to ever live.
That says something, because even as the most famous mime, I didn't know who he was.
He's referenced in, like, Weird Al's, She Never Told Me She Was a Mime. Probably his most well-known bit was appearing in Mel Brooks's Silent movie, and, like, the joke is that they're trying to make a silent movie, and they call him up, and they're like, Marcel Marceau, would you like to be in our silent movie? And he delivers the only voiced line in the movie, which is just him going, non. And that's the only time anyone speaks in the movie is the famous mime.
Is that a good movie, would you say?
Silent movie, yeah, that's one of Mel Brooks' best.
I'll have to check it out.
Not like top tier Mel Brooks, but like B tier Mel Brooks. You know, it's funny. It's really funny.
For sure, I gotcha. We have David Hemmings as Dilando, or Dildano, or however you say that. Is that the guy who she had hand sex with?
Yeah.
And I don't mean like she jerked him off or anything. I mean they literally just put their hands together and that gives them pleasure. This is definitely the most sex talk we've done in an episode before. I apologize.
It's like the most. No, I think it is the most sex we've had in an episode. Not the most nudity. Showgirls definitely had more nudity, but there was not actually a lot of sex in that movie.
Yeah.
This is the most sex that has ever happened in an episode.
I think that's the difference between doing a movie like that from like the 70s or 60s versus doing one from like 90s, early 2000s, you know? They're going to try to be more artsy about it. Although I will say we have Ugo Tognazzi as Mark Hand, and maybe Mark Hand should have been the character who had the hand sex. So are we saying that right? Are we naming the right character there?
Yeah. He's been in stuff, as has David Hemmings. David Hemmings is in like Gladiator and Gangs of New York, and like Deep Red and Blow Up, which are like kind of more offbeat. But like he's been in a lot of famous stuff. Ugo Tognazzi has been in some like a lot of French New Wave stuff. Looks like.
Yeah,
that's an artsy guy.
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah, I mean Barbarella is actually pretty low on like his list of movies, so I'm assuming like these are some popular French films.
He's not like a major character in this.
Who did he play? I don't even remember who Mark Hand was.
That was one of the revolutionaries. Okay. I think.
Is there anyone else worth mentioning? Like, I think we definitely went through the characters that get the most screen time already.
Yeah. I don't know, if there was another character you wanted to mention, now would be the time.
I mean, the first guy she has sex with, is that Captain Sun, or is that someone else? He's relevant for the first part of the movie. I mean, literally just the first part. Yeah. He does not come back. Him and Barbarella were planning a second meetup, but I don't know if that's happening after the sex organ.
Yeah. I mean, she got her angel BF, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she has a good thing going by the end of that movie. Fun movie. I don't know how much else I have to say about it. That was a fun movie.
Yeah, no, it's a real good time. Roger Vadim directed. He has made some like fairly well received stuff. I know like Pretty Maids All in a Row is like one of Tarantino's favorite films.
I've heard of that movie. I haven't seen it.
I haven't either.
There is actually one pretty notable thing that we can talk about with Barbarella, And that is, even though it's not confirmed yet, the talks of a remake directed by Edgar Wright.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, but I think it was actually off recording. There are like reports that they're gonna remake Barbarella, possibly with Sydney Sweeney and possibly with Edgar Wright at the helm. Of course, sometimes they say that and that movie never comes out,
I will absolutely go see it in theaters if it does, but I don't know if it should exist, and I'm also like a little worried for Edgar Wright if he does, because I liked Last Night in Soho, but that movie wasn't nearly like as well received as his previous ones by people. I personally don't agree. I thought it was a good movie, but especially with the way it was fucking made. I think it was one of his nicest looking movies. But Barbarella just feels like it's such a pure, like it was made for that time. Why would you try to make it again?
If there's anyone I trust to remake it, it's Edgar Wright. Now, if Edgar Wright is not attached to it, I'm probably not going to go see it, but...
It would have to be another director that I like. Otherwise, it's going to be... I'll watch it out of curiosity when it comes out, but I'm not seeing that in theaters without like a director that I like attached to it. But at the same time, it might be perfect for Edgar Wright, because Edgar Wright has a really good sense of humor in his directing. I just don't want to. I don't want to see that I don't want to see Edgar Wright have a downfall, because I don't agree with the critiques against Last Night in Soho. But if he makes Barbarella, just doesn't seem like our Barbarella remake just doesn't seem like a good idea. But I am intrigued.
Yeah.
I can't deny being intrigued by an Edgar Wright Barbarella.
One thing is, I think I would trust him to like have physical sets and physical props.
Yeah.
And not just like CG this whole film, which would be like the Hollywood producer instinct.
Yeah. That's so sad. Like, we look at these older movies and it's like all of them, even if it was a movie that people didn't have a lot of faith in, had these like nice sets. Where if it's a movie that people don't have faith in now, or even if it's a movie that people do have faith in, there's gonna be a ton of CG. And I'm not like, it's not that it never works. I like movies with a lot of CG in it sometimes, but you kind of miss looking at stuff that's real. Like the thing in Barbarella's ship, that weird, you know what I'm talking about? That weird thing that was like in the background, and it's just like all these like switches just kind of constantly going up and down. Like that looked neat, and I think that was a real thing that they had there.
Yeah.
And that's like a point that wouldn't have been it's like a credit that wouldn't have been given at the time because all movies had practical shit like that, and now it's like if you see anything practical in a movie, it's like an immediate point because it's like, okay, cool, you didn't CG the whole fucking movie.
Yeah, I hope they learn the wrong lesson from Barbie's success. I hope they look at the success of Barbie and go, we got to bring back giant physical sets. People want the giant physical sets. It's all about the giant physical sets.
Yeah. And honestly, with how many horror stories come out from CG artists, it might even be like the way to go. It's expensive and the time crunch is insane. So maybe physical sets aren't actually like less. I mean, both these movies had a relatively small budget too, didn't they?
I'm sure Zardoz had something of a budget.
I did a little bit of research on Zardoz in the very brief break we had, and I feel like it didn't have the biggest budget, but it didn't have because what I heard is it didn't have
it was like a $1.5 million budget. Now that's $70s, but that still seems a little low.
Because I was going to say, like, what I heard about it, and again, like, this was like 10 minutes of research in between watching the two movies, because I pulled up that quote from the director of Zardoz, which was wonderful, by the way. But it was like, it was a low budget, but it still didn't make most of its money back. I mean, it didn't do well. It didn't perform well.
Barbarella is actually a little more expensive than Zardoz. It says in the $4 to $9 million range. It was a Dino De Laurentiis production, so I guess that checks out. De Laurentiis has a little money to throw around. I think he also produced Flash Gordon, now that I think about it.
That's kind of funny.
But I mean, De Laurentiis produced a lot of stuff. Yeah, he produced Flash Gordon. He produced a lot of stuff.
I will say visually, I think I was more impressed by Zardoz, but I also think Zardoz did take, like, it used a lot of camera tricks to kind of hide what they didn't have.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene where he's kind of like Zed, we'll talk about this movie in just a second, but, like, Zed is trapped in this, like, I guess within the crystal. It's kind of hard to explain. but he, there's, like, some really cool shots they got for that scene, but there's also scenes of him, like, sliding down, and they clearly got some, like, really close-up angles, so they didn't actually have to show a set there, where Barbarella, it's pretty comfortable showing like long shots of what the actual set looks like.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about Zardoz?
Yeah, let's talk about Zardoz.
Zardoz is a film from 1974, directed by John Borman. Stars Sean Connery as Zed, who's like part of this like savage tribe on the earth who worships this giant floating head called Zardoz, and Zardoz has come to them and told them to wipe out humanity, eradicate the last remnants of humanity. But recently some things have started to change with Zardoz. He's told them, like, okay, now you capture prisoners and you make the prisoners grow grain, and you make sacrifices of grain to me. So Sean Connery, who plays a character Zed, stows away in the giant in like the grain sacrifice inside the giant stone head, and kills the man piloting the stone head, and ends up in this different place of like, what do they call it? The vortex. He ends up in the vortex, which is a place full of these immortal human beings who've lived for centuries and like detest the humans on Earth, who can like die and who have brutal, disgusting sex all the time. And, since he has broken into this place, they're all sort of curious about him, so they start studying him scientifically. But, some of them, there's one particular lady who doesn't want him there, who fears what him being there will mean for them, who fears that it will be their people's undoing. And of course it actually is, because it turns out a lot of the people there yearn for death. A lot of the immortals don't want to go on being immortal. They just want to die. And they need Zed to destroy the temple, to like find this thing that is like keeping them alive and destroy it. That's about as put together a plot synopsis as I think I can give, because it is weird. It is a surrealist film. So it's hard to necessarily parse what is happening at all times. I mean, not too hard. It is there is like a clear enough narrative happening here, but it gets really weird at points. What'd you think of Zardoz, Michael?
I think this is gonna say something about me to our listeners. I loved it. I mean, genuinely, I loved it, and I have it like at a 9 out of 10 for now, and we'll see if that goes up or down as time passes, because it is kind of like, oh, I'm just now reacting to it. It's my new number one for Hollow Victories. Like I have like a ranking list on Letterboxd. It's number one. It surpassed Book of Henry and how much I enjoyed one of these movies. Where both Book of Henry, where there was like, it's like all ironic enjoyment, a really good ironic enjoyment. I think the movie's hilarious. This one is like a mix. Like I think some of it is just kind of like really weird and outlandish, and I'm kind of laughing at it. But I also think it is a movie that like I won't. Even the director said he doesn't know what all of it means, so I'm not going to act like every single decision made in the movie is like some brilliant choice, but I actually do think the movie has something to say on top of it, and I really found myself appreciating it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot to chew on with this movie. I feel like there's a lot to dissect. And I do think it's maybe a little vague. I think you could definitely go a lot of directions. I think you could even come up with, like, conflicting interpretations of the film. Like, you could look at it one way and it's like, well, this is kind of sexist because of this, but then you'll be like, oh, but actually it's kind of progressive if you look at it this way.
I think the most sexist thing it is how good of a guy Zed is portrayed as, because Zed definitely does stuff that isn't okay.
Yeah, and I mean, on some level, it feels like it is critical of like the brutal meathead, like kill everyone and rape and pillage stuff that the men are doing down on Earth. But then, Zed, he's the enlightened one, because he learned to read and he read all these books, and that's what's gonna help him defeat these uptight immortals.
I think the biggest conflict there, I think it's what would be my biggest critique of the film, even though I do really enjoy it, and even then you can make an argument that it's like in character, it still makes sense considering the life that he lived. He does try to force himself on people more than once. So it's okay, he's the character that's criticizing this despite being just as capable of doing it. But at the same time, you almost question, is that kind of the point? Is that a point they're trying to make, or is it a point that they were oblivious to, you know?
Yeah, I like I said, I think you can kind of look at it either way. I feel like this film is open enough that you can kind of interpret it any way you want.
Yeah. I think that, like, there's parts of the movie where it's like, I think it's like, where there's almost like ironic enjoyment and unironic enjoyment, like the Wizard of Oz reveal, for example. I like the connection they make. I like the connection they make to that book with what's going on and how it's like this big realization for him. But then there's also silly shit like him covering out parts of the name of the Wizard of Oz book where it says, it spells out Zardoz. You know, it's like, it's silly, but it also, I think there's something clever about it, but I also think there's something really stupid about it. And I'm just so lost, but at the same time, like, what really elevates the movie, because it's like parts of the film feel very pretentious and parts of the film feel very interesting to me. But the pretentious stuff, it's still presented in a really unique way. It's still presented in a way that's cool to look at. It's still like, and it's still like, the movie is so tonally confused at points that it's still like enjoyable to watch. And I do think the film has like something to say about like these two different worlds, the Brutals and what's the other one called? It's the Brutals and the what? 'Cause I'm forgetting what the others are called.
The Immortals.
Something like that. They use two words that kind of sounded similar, but where like the people, like the Brutals, they're kind of living this like really, like their lifestyle seems really miserable. They're just fucking like hunting each other down and killing each other, and they're not allowed to repopulate and all this horrible shit. But then the people stuck in this world that have like, it seems like a perfect haven. It's like a blissful world to live in. They have immortal life.
The Eternals.
Yes, the Eternals, the Brutals and the Eternals. But they all, like, so many of them just want to die. So many of them are so miserable, and they very quickly, both in like embracing Zed's presence and trying to get rid of Zed's presence, because there's so many people that it gets so fucking weird, because there's some people that are happy that he's there because it's making them feel alive again. There's people there who are trying to kill him because they're afraid he's going to ruin their way of life. And then there's people that go both ways with it, where it's like they're happy that he's there. They also want to kill him / have him kill them. Like it's just insane. It's just pure insanity. But it kind of goes into this like, yeah, if you had this perfect haven, if you had this perfect life, you wouldn't want it. You know, like it talks about how like death is like such a, they literally say it's like it was an offense to life to create this because death is part of life.
Yeah, and I also think it's like important that all of that is built on them, like, creating this haven separate from the poor, the lower class people of the Outlands, you know, and treating them as like, ooh, the barbaric savages, we're just gonna fly our giant stone head in there and tell them it's God.
Yeah. I think the next thing I want to talk about actually is a little bit off topic, so if you have anything else to say about the themes of this movie, go for it.
I think perhaps a charitable read of it is sort of, you know, the Brutals, they represent this sort of, you know, the warmongering conservative, and the Eternals are sort of the highbrow liberal elites, and like, oh, we just want this like peaceful democratic utopia. We don't care that it's built on the bodies of thousands of people and the exploitation of other people's labor, and we also don't care that it's making everyone miserable. And you know, the solution that sort of comes in there is, you know, education. He educates himself, but at the same time, I also think it's very cool near the end where he's sort of like, knowledge alone isn't gonna help me in this. I have to find something more.
Right.
I think that's really fascinating, and I think that leads to some very interesting stuff near the end. Because I mean, you even have like the guy who pretended to be Zardoz, and his friend. His name was Friend, wasn't it?
Yeah,
his name was literally just Friend. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, we controlled everything. We led the people to breed to bring you to life so that you could free us. And he's like, I've looked into the face and I have of this greater thing, and I know you were led and bred too. And they're like, well, he's figured it out.
Nice, yeah.
That's a really good scene. I really like that.
Me too. And bringing Friend into this, that's actually going to bring up what I want to talk about, which is like the visuals of this movie. I think the effect on him looks really nice. Like the half of his face is old, half of it is young. Like that, God, like it looks convincing. It looks good. It's such a that could have easily looked like shit. That could have easily been like a really goofy look, but like half of his face does look really old, half of his face does look really young. It's a really impressive effect, especially for the fucking 70s. On top of that, like I guess one more thing I'll say about like just the themes of the movie and the story of the film is I kept like asking myself, like while we were watching, was like, how the fuck are they gonna wrap this up? How's it gonna end? I think the ending scene was really good. Where it's just them sitting in this cave and aging, and like they have a kid, and once the kid grows up, he just fucks off. Like just how quickly that scene, however all of it goes by, they accepted their mortality and lived a life, and there's almost a question of like whether they made the right choice or not there.
I feel like the implication is that they made the right choice, that they were a lot happier living life.
I think you're right. It's just that blank stare they give, though,
Yeah.
That kind of makes it a little ambiguity, like, I can't talk. The ambiguous nature of this movie is definitely a big part of it.
Yeah. I also like the big climax scene where, like, the other Brutals ride in and start shooting all the Eternals, and they're like, please, kill me too.
It's like the collision
Hooray,
of worlds
sweet
because...
death.
Because the Brutals, like, they're trained, like, hunting and killing is what they do. It's just, like, in their nature. And then all these people want it, though, That's the new bliss for them. That's the new haven for them, is just actually being able to stop existing. Because they've existed for such a long fucking time.
Yeah.
There's actually a show that I enjoy a good bit. I don't know if you've seen this one or not. The Good Place.
I have seen The Good Place.
It kind of go that show kind of goes into that where it's like not nearly in the same fucking way, very different approach, but it's kind of the idea of like, would you, like, if heaven existed, would you want to exist forever? Would that be satisfying forever? Would you eventually get tired of it? And The Good Place addressed that in a pretty unique way. I think The Good Place finale is The Good Place had its ups and downs for me, but the finale I thought was like fantastic, because I think that's an interesting concept to explore. Is just like, because, God, I remember when I was a kid and I was thinking about going to heaven, I was like, I had that thought as a kid, like, do you want to exist forever? It's a weird thing to think about when you're a kid, but when you have that idea pitched to you that you're just going to keep existing forever, it's like, it's a lot to take in,
Yeah.
Visually, I love this movie. That's like one of the things that really elevated. There's so many cool looking scenes. I think the scene where he's alone and where I almost thought the movie was going to end with him being trapped in that one area, like that hall of mirrors, and he couldn't get out, and that was gonna be like the terror of the ending. I think the ending they went with was better than that, but that scene had some really cool fucking shots. That scene looked wonderful. But the movie's filled like to the brim with like just really cool imagery.
Yeah, no, it's a good looking film. I like when they're like, oh, we're gonna like teach you all our knowledge, and it's just kind of like this weird trippy montage of like culture being projected onto people, and they and then they like move the projection over onto Sean Connery.
Yeah,
communicate that he has like gained this knowledge.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was neat. I love in the final scene, like, I think the music in the movie is good, the score is good, but they do use some pre-existing music, ending it on a famous Beethoven track. And my research I keep talking about was literally just me watching the last 5 minutes of the Cinema Snobs review. I skipped to the end because I was just like, what did he think? He's gonna like make jokes throughout the review. What did he actually think of the movie? I want to see if I'm insane for liking this. I want to hear someone else said they enjoyed it. So I skipped to the end of his review, and he made a joke where he was just like, yeah, no, I watched this when I was a kid, so I heard the famous Beethoven track, and then when I heard that track in a commercial, it's like, why are they playing the theme from Zardoz in this? But I thought that was like a really great track to end on, because it's like such a powerful piece of music. It's always used in like a really like horrific scene, but in this scene it's like kind of interesting because it's used in like, they're showing horrific stuff, but it's also like good, like it's something that the characters want. So just, yeah, you could definitely look at this movie. If someone looked at this movie and just said that was really pretentious and I didn't like it, I couldn't argue with them because I can't justify every choice made in the movie. It's not. I've watched plenty of abstract movies where really like bizarre films where I feel like every single decision makes sense to me. A lot of Charlie Kaufman's work, for example, with like I'm Thinking of Ending Things in Synecdoche, New York, I think it's all very purposeful. Where this movie, the director admitted it wasn't all purposeful, you know? But I think there's enough in there. There's enough to chew on. There's enough to like interpret where it's like it's still a worthwhile experience, and I just appreciate the weird imagery that it gave it. Even when the movie was just being pure nonsense, I had fun watching it. There was never a point where they were half-assed in the movie, at the very least. Maybe they half-assed the story, but I didn't get that experience from it.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's got a very fascinating presentation. I think there's a lot to dissect. I will say, like, again, this is part of why we say, like, oh, we're doing poorly received films, because this film was pretty poorly reviewed upon release. Both of these fairly poorly reviewed upon release. I know both of them wound up in the official Razzie Movie Guide as of like top 100 funniest bad movies. And like I kind of don't think that's fair.
I think Barbarella is like a so bad it's good watch, but it's one that felt self-aware.
Barbarella, fair enough, but I mean, yeah, I'm with you. It felt self-aware enough that I almost wouldn't count it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas Zardoz, I just kind of feel like I get looking at it as like kind of a weird, pretentious thing, and maybe you just enjoy it because it's so weird. This one's also kind of like a stoner classic, just because it's so fucking surreal. But, yeah, you know.
I'd love to rewatch it stoned.
I also feel like it's an interesting enough movie in its own right.
For sure. And it's just so well made. Just the floating rock at the very beginning of the movie that Zardoz himself who we really don't see that much after the opening scene, but I thought that was a cool visual.
I mean, that's like the iconic shot of the movie, right? That's the thing that everyone parodies.
Yeah. I gotta say, I thought that it was a really cool movie. I really enjoyed it. If someone said it was a pretentious movie, I wouldn't argue with them that it's pretentious, but I would argue anyone who says the movie has nothing to say. Because to me, like some of the messages, some of the themes of the film are like clear.
Should we talk about this cast?
Yeah.
Sean Connery is definitely on watch to make a return appearance. I'm kind of surprised this is his first film. Not terribly surprised. It's not like he's done like a lot of bad movies, but he's definitely like the type of guy who would show up in a Hollow Victories movie. He's a big enough name that also like was kind of desperate for work late in his career.
Right. I'll say this, I actually thought for a second maybe he did appear, but what it actually was is he was in an Indiana Jones movie. He was in the Last Crusade, and I watched the Indiana Jones movies in preparation for that episode we did. So he wasn't in the bad one, but I did see a movie he was in.
I think he shows up in a photograph in Crystal Skull. So you could argue we have seen him before on the show, but he wasn't in the movie. Because that I believe was after Sean Connery had passed away. Mm-hmm. So they were just like, oh yeah, the character's dead.
Yeah. I mean, I thought his performance was good. I enjoyed him in this movie.
He's kind of a good pick for this role, you know?
Yeah.
Because like you need like a brutish, like, kind of misogynistic man. Yeah, Sean Connery's your guy.
We have Charlotte Rampling as Consuela, who...
Consuela.
She was good. I will say I got more from Sarah Kestelman as May, just because she was the one who was like really prying information out of him. And there's like this sadness... But I thought they were both pretty interesting, especially like the scene where they first like meet with him, and they're like kind of like arguing with how they want to handle this situation.
Yeah, I think Consuela's like the most interesting character, because she is in part the one who like wants to send him away the most, but it also almost feels like she wants to send him away the most because she like is worried about the feelings she has for him. Because in the end they end up married. They end up married and they have a kid. So
yeah.
I think that makes her an interesting character.
Yeah, I thought
I thought it was a pretty good performance.
I agree. I think the scene where she's like about to kill him, and he just says, "You're not going to do it. The hunt is more interesting than the actual kill." I thought that was a cool moment. I liked their conversation from there, and yeah, no, she was good. John Alderton as friend, like I said, I think the effect on him was like the best part of that. But I enjoyed him. He did a good. I don't think there's like bad performances in this. I think they all work for what the film is.
Him and Niall Buggy, I hope I'm saying that right. Niall Buggy have like kind of a fun banter at the end. They're both kind of like they're laughing about like the fact that they're all about to be killed. They're like, finally, sweet release of death. Sounds great, doesn't it? Yeah. They have a fun dynamic. Like I honestly wish Niall Buggy, who's of course the guy who is Zardoz. He is Zardoz. His name is like Arthur, I think.
Yeah.
But I wish he was in a little more of the movie because he's kind of funny too.
Yeah, he was funny, and I mean, there's other scenes of him are funny. Like you mentioned at the very beginning of the movie, and it's funny you said it. I was thinking the same thing. Kind of reminded me of like Eric Idle.
Yeah, no, the opening shot of this movie is just his like disembodied head floating around with like a mustache and a goatee drawn on in like Sharpie. And he like from enough of a distance he looks and sounds enough like Eric Idle that I'm like, this feels like a Monty Python bit.
Yeah, it really did. He has a couple of other fun scenes too, though, like when he's first like trying to look into the crystal ball and see something in it. They have like kind of an exchange, him and Zed, and that was another fun scene.
I don't know if there was anyone else I wanted to mention. Is there anyone you want to mention?
No, but funny enough, like looking at the like this full cast too, there's a lot of people in this movie, and most of them aren't like listed on Google. Like a lot of these are actors who the movie had a lot of extras.
I do feel like there were really only like 4 or 5 characters who did much, and everyone else was kind of an extra.
Yeah. I guess there's like, it's Christopher Kassan as the old scientist, and that character is notable, but he probably has a minute of screen time, maybe 2 minutes. But he's like the first one that he's the first person to die, and that makes them realize, oh, like, death is possible again.
He's the one who invents immortality and then, like, begs to be let to die, and they won't let him die. They just, like, age him as much as they can.
Right.
John Boorman is actually a fairly prolific director. He made Deliverance. That's probably his best known film. Made a movie called Point Blank that was pretty good. He is on watch to return because he made The Exorcist 2: The Heretic. That one is also fairly surreal, but it's in a setting where you're like, why are you being this weird? You're The Exorcist 2. Stop.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of his other movies. I'll have to check some of them out.
Yeah, he is on watch to return.
Oh, that's got to be like a pretty notable cut, because we always talk about the return in actors, but the return in directors should be I think that's going to happen a lot less frequently, of course, but
I mean, so far I think the only director there's 2 directors we've seen twice. There was the one director who did both The Thinning and Smiley.
Oh, that's right.
And then Joel Schumacher, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, both of which we have discussed.
I'm surprised Shyamalan hasn't made it on more than once, but it really was just Last Airbender so far.
Yeah, I feel like if we did another Shyamalan movie, it would have to be like a Shyamalan matchup.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which 2 I would pair together.
It could even be like something, we could even like wait and see what he puts out, because there might be like a good one in the future to pair up with a more recent one. I even think there's like Shyamalan movies that could be paired up with like I feel like they could be paired up with like non-Shyamalan movies too. Like I feel like Glass, like find like an unsatisfying cinematic universe, pair that up with Glass.
I have considered After Earth versus Chaos Walking, although Chaos Walking wasn't like super popular. I don't think it got as much hate as After Earth did. Also, After Earth is boring as hell, and I kind of don't want to watch it again. That's like the one Shyamalan movie I'm like, no, this one's boring. Like, some of them are at least funny bad. That one is boring.
Yeah, I feel like Chaos Walking, the most notoriety I got from it was just like as a listener to Sardonicast, because that one got brought up a decent bit prior to them actually talking about it. And I think Charlie Kaufman being a writer was a big part of that.
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman was attached to it at one point, although his name I don't think is on the final film.
And it shouldn't be.
I can kind of see where he would want to do that movie. I can kind of see where Charlie Kaufman would take that concept. Obviously the end product sucks, so
Still haven't seen his animated film from like last year. I know that. I know he
yeah.
didn't I know he didn't direct it, but he was a writer on that, wasn't he?
Yeah, I should watch that. Damn.
I should watch that
Put
too.
that on my list to like watch ahead of the Oscars.
Yeah. Good movie. Zardoz was a good movie. In my opinion, it's one of the few where I'll say like not ironic enjoyment, just not that there's nothing unironic, like not that there's no ironic enjoyment we have. I would call it an unironic good Hall of Victories movie. And there's not a lot of those.
Yeah, I guess it's time to vote, and I guess I vote first because you introduced the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, I enjoy both of these. One of them I think I enjoy a little more ironically than the other one. Zardoz I think I genuinely enjoy more so than Barbarella. Barbarella, I think it's a lot more ironic enjoyment. I think it's a lot more like laughing at it for being silly.
Mm-hmm.
So my vote is Zardoz.
Yeah, I think I kind of already made that one clear for me. That happens a lot on the show lately, where I just kind of like very quickly make my stance known. And sorry if that makes the ending boring, but sometimes it's just yeah. But I gotta say though, Barbarella, if it was paired with literally anything else, I think it would have won. I think it's just like circumstantial because that was also the Barbarella.
Oh yeah,
that is a solid Hollow Victories pick. I like it. I respect it. Zardoz it's my new number one.
This probably is like objectively the best pair up we've done.
Yeah.
If I had to rank though, it's probably this, then like Space Jam Looney Tunes Back in Action, The Grinch and Cat in the Hat, and then after that I don't know.
Book of Henry and Serenity probably. Those were both so bad it's good, but like that was a really fun pair up.
The audience is with us, although barely. It is so close. It is 52% Zardoz, 48% Barbarella.
That is really fucking close.
That is a really close margin.
Giving it to Zardoz.
Oh yeah, Zardoz wins. Hooray. This is a weird matchup. Next time on Hollow Victories, this one's a bit of a weird matchup. It's the Jean-Claude Van Damme double feature. Two Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, both with the word double in the title. It's Double Team versus Double Impact.
Don't know of either of those. There'll be this one's very blind for me.
It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. I love him so much. And one of them has Dennis Rodman. He and basketball player Dennis Rodman have to work together.
Kim Jong-un's buddy.
Yeah. One night in college, I was like drunk as shit, and I just like followed him on Twitter. And that was my old Twitter account, but like for a while I was just following Dennis Rodman on Twitter because I drunkenly followed him one night. It's like, yo, he's on Twitter, follow. Anyways, I'm looking forward to getting to talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's what I'm excited for.
All right. I was gonna say I'm looking forward to it. That's all.
All right, we're gonna do more fun ones in 2025. This one's a pretty fun one, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, the one we just did was a lot of fun, but I'm trusting you with this next one.
It is kind of picked out of a hat, but you know what? We're going with it. Until next time, I'm Matt Presents for my co-host Makal. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.